On October 23, 2019, Officer Ryan Wertz and Officer Joseph Williamson responded to 103 East Washington Street for a reported service to advise regarding a landlord-tenant issue. After talking to the property manager, officers went to speak with the tenant. Once they entered the apartment building, Officers Wertz and Williamson heard an audible smoke alarm going off and could smell smoke. They determined that both the alarm sound and the smoke was coming from the apartment in question. Officer Wertz and Officer Williamson entered the apartment to check on the welfare of the resident. Upon entry, they immediately observed that the apartment was filled with smoke. As they made their way to the back of the apartment, they saw what appeared to be a mattress which had been set on fire, and they could feel intense heat. They eventually located the resident, who was armed with a knife. After making numerous attempts to get the resident to drop the knife, Officer Wertz and Officer Williamson withdrew from the apartment due to the intense smoke. Once Officers Wertz and Williamson left the apartment, the resident exited the apartment and was observed standing on the rear third-floor balcony, still armed with a knife. As Officer Wertz and Officer Williamson made their way to the back of the building, they knocked on numerous doors trying to alert residents concerning the fire and to get them to evacuate the building. Outside, other arriving officers observed the male on the third-floor balcony. The male had straddled the railing and appeared to be contemplating jumping off the balcony. A nearby resident attempted to talk the male out of jumping from the balcony. Officer Joseph Brady also attempted to talk the male out of jumping. Eventually, the male came back onto the porch. Officer Andrew Main, who had responded and cleared several apartments, made his way to the back porch on the third floor. Officer Main attempted to engage the male in conversation from inside the residence to get him to surrender peacefully. In the meantime, Officer Jason Batistig climbed up to the third-floor balcony and confronted the armed male while Officer Main was attempting to negotiate with him. When the male failed to drop the knife, Officer Batistig deployed his taser. However, it did not have the desired effect, and the male still failed to comply. Eventually, Officer Main was able to get the male to drop the knife, and Officer Brady moved in quickly to safely secure the male with assistance from Officer Main. Officers quickly removed the male from the building and began to clear the rest of the complex to ensure no one else was inside. The male was subsequently transported to the hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries. In addition to the other officers on the scene, Officer John Moziklowski and TFC Brock Marquis from the Maryland State Police Department attempted to alert and evacuate residents. Officer John Molineaux arrived on scene and crawled under the smoke line into the burning apartment to ensure that no one else was inside. Sergeant Hay followed Officer Molineaux inside the apartment to ensure that no one was left there. After clearing the apartment as far as he could, Officer Molineaux exited and met arriving firefighters to brief them on the conditions. Sergeant Cox and Officer Gary Anderson, also on duty that evening, arrived and helped to direct the fire department to the scene and keep onlookers away from the area. Due to the actions of the first responding officers in quickly alerting the fire department and other officers for clearing the apartment building and for safely taking the subject into custody, the situation was safely resolved without any serious injury to anyone involved.